What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here, going my final thoughts for week 9 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. And tons of injury news has dropped throughout the week, especially on Friday, just a couple of hours ago. We've opened up a lot of value, especially at the running back position, so it should be a fun one. But we'll be going game by game, breaking it all down, talking cash games, stacks, tournaments, and then run the optimizer at the end to see who's popping. So if that all sounds fine and dandy to you, make sure you do me a favor, leave a like down below. Sky Champ for brand new. Let's dive right into it. And real quick, if you do like what you see on the screen today, it's available at my website, cpendfs.com, website I built myself, and plus a ton of other stuff as well. Everything for the classic main slate, projections, data, the optimizer, and everything is nice and easy formatted to read, so it's quite easy to understand. And the flagship showdowns, including the optimizer and all that good stuff for DraftKings and FanDuel. So if you want to check it out, you can find a link down in the description or the pinned comment, and your first week is free. All right, now that I sold my soul to you guys, let's get into it here. And as I always say, I'm not going to go in depth on every single team, every single player, every single game. It's boring. You don't want to listen to it. I don't want to make it. It would be an hour long, and it's just a bunch of yip yapping for about stuff that doesn't make sense. So we're going to keep it short, sweet, and simple here. So we will start with the first game here, and it's one of the games of the week. Chicago on the road in Cincy, 51.5 point over under. I would say there's two very premium games, totals with over 50 points on this slate. One is a lot more expensive than the other. It's going to be an incredible game to watch. I think we're all excited for it, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. But if you can't afford that game, this is basically, like, that game is basically Whole Foods. If you're rich, by all means, go for it. But unfortunately, we have to deal with the salary cap. So we can get a pretty similar value here. Maybe not as exciting of players, but they're a lot cheaper. And we're still getting a 51.5 point over under. So this is basically the Walmart version of that game. And hey, I go to Walmart, so I have absolutely no shame hanging out here in Cincinnati for value. Now, there is a couple of things that we definitely need to talk about. First off, DeAndre Swift's going to be out. Cal Monangai, however you say his name, I don't care, but I know he's $4,600 and he's a starting running back, and he's actually not that bad. It's a great matchup, so we all love him this week. I'll learn how to say his name when I watch the game on Sunday. But for Cincinnati, Joe Flacco is currently questionable for this game. If he happens to be out, it hurts this game overall, because we all seen what they are without Joe Flacco and without Joe Burrow. This game would take a hit. Jake Browning, we've seen him sling it around a couple of times, but it's usually not pretty. I think it would hurt the overall game environment and pace of this game. Of course, everybody on Cincy would get a downgrade, like Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and the tight ends. Right now, I'm assuming he is in, and if that's the case, absolutely love this game. If not, it takes a bit of a hit, but I would still be just fine with the Chicago pieces. So we'll talk about Chicago first. 27.5 implied team total. They are 2.5 point favorites on the road. And Caleb Williams, one of the top point per dollar quarterbacks on the slate. I currently have a Jackson Dart projecting slightly better, but whether it's DraftKings or FanDuel, he's an excellent option. The running back, he's got a near 15 point projection. That honestly might be a tad low. We'll have to see. I'm going to fine tune some things by Sunday. DeAndre Swift just got ruled out, so this was the first set of projections that came out. But he's $4,600 on DraftKings, $5,200 on FanDuel. If you're playing cash games, you have to play him. Honestly, I'm going to play him either way. He's going to be my single entry lineup. He opens up the entire slate for me. Now, if you're trying to get a bit different, play the passing game. Everyone's going to be on Monangai, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, perfectly fine stacking options. No Luther Burden in this game. He actually does not project bad at all for a punt wide receiver. And there's really not many cheap wide receivers out there that I like typically. It's been a while. Not saying I would play this case in cash games, but in tournaments, if you're looking for a double stack with Caleb, that's okay. Tight end position, it's all right. I mean, since he has struggled versus tight end so far this year, but I'm not going away for any of them. And since he is fully dependent on Joe Flacco, Joe Flacco plays, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all in play. If not, I'm probably going to be out. Really quick, we do look at the stack board here. Let's go over to Insights, head over to DraftKings, and we're going to sort this by team salary versus implied team total. We do it every single week because the teams that we see in this upper left quadrant, usually those are the better value stacks on the slate. Because if you're a cheaper team and you still have a pretty high projected implied team total, that's how you score fantasy points, by moving the ball, having a higher total, getting near the end zone. And of course, Chicago Bears are one of the best options in there. Now, we've only talked about one game. Now, I believe, my head is hiding Cincinnati, so they're not quite there because obviously Jamar Chase is pretty expensive, but still not impossible to stack with. I think we know that. Buffalo is really not that expensive when you factor in all the wide receivers and tight ends, but as we all know, it's kind of tough to know who to stack with Josh Allen. I'm not talking about anybody else yet, but just want to give you guys a nice visualization of that. And in this one, you want to be in the upper right. The Rams are hiding, but we have the Lions, Green Bay Packers, Kansas City Chiefs, of course, look fantastic. We'll talk about that game later. The Chargers, the Colts, the Bears. So if you're up in here, it's basically where you want to be. And if you can overlap being in this upper right for this and being in the upper left for this one, it's usually a really nice sweet spot to be in for teams. Now we have Minnesota on the road in Detroit. NFC North showdown here. Should be a good real life game, 47.5 point over under. But honestly, at the price tags for everybody in this game, I just don't really see myself getting there, which is crazy to say. Detroit has a near 30-point implied team total. I think they'll be pretty low owned because of it. So if you're trying to target a team in tournaments that has major upside, of course, we know Detroit can hang 50 points on anybody. It doesn't really matter who it is, and they play exceptionally well at home, especially Jared Goff. His home road splits are very much so in favor of playing at the Dome in Detroit. But honestly, I don't see myself going here personally. So, I mean, it's a good game. Lots of good players, but they're very expensive. And Jahmyr Gibbs, AK, Amon St. Brown, $8,300. Jameson Williams can get you 0 or 20. Who knows how that's going to go. Jefferson with JJ McCarthy back. I'm not really sure how much I'm going to trust him, even though Carson Wentz basically lost his arm last game and was trying his best, so we'll salute him for that. But I would say McCarthy is a downgrade overall for Jefferson, but I don't really want to pay these prices. I think there's other games, like we just talked about, Cincy and Chicago, that look a bit better to me. Moving on to Carolina and Green Bay. Very lopsided in Green Bay's favor at home in Lambeau. Another game I just don't really see myself getting to much of. Like, I think Jordan Love and Tucker Kraft could be a pretty interesting stack. I mean, Tucker Kraft has pretty much established himself this year as one of the best tight ends in the league. He's excellent after the catch. I would, as of like since last year, he's honestly been the best tight end after the catch. Dude's extremely talented. He's great. I think Carolina will struggle with that. But outside of that, you can't really trust any of the wide receivers. They get Christian Watson back. But that just confuses things even more. We know he's a big play guy, but he's also someone that can injure his hamstring every single game and leave at halftime. That's possible as well. They did see Rico Dowdle is going to get the majority of the carries, but with them being 12.5 point dogs on the road, I'm not really sure how much they're going to be able to establish the run. So for me, another game that I don't have a ton of interest. It's not like the worst projected scoring game on the slate, but just really not much doing it for me. And then we have a really nasty game here. 39.5 point over under. Denver on the road and Houston, both pretty solid defenses. We know PH2 is not going to be playing. They are getting Nico Collins back, which is good for CJ Stroud. Or maybe it's bad. I don't know. CJ Stroud had one of his better games in a long time with no Nico Collins or Christian Kirk. So maybe it was a good thing for him. But this is a stay away game for me. I don't really see anybody I would want to go out of my way on this slate to play. There's so many other good spots. I am just going to pass. I like the defenses. I especially like the Houston Texans defense at their price point. And that is just about it. Then we have the Falcons and the New England Patriots. And while I don't mind Drake May, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, and he's been very good for fantasy. But I just don't see myself going there. But who I do like is Travion Henderson at $4,900. No Stevenson this week. And they are going to have Terrell Jennings. We will see how the role looks. They could just put Jennings in as Stevenson, and Henderson still gets his normal barely being on the field role. But I'm going to assume Henderson is going to be in line for 13 to 15 carries. Somewhere in that range, he'll get the targets. Hopefully, we're looking at 15 to 20 touches, and if that's going to be the case, maybe 12 to 18 touches from Henderson. I don't know. I can't trust a variable with him, but he's sub 5K. We know he's talented. They have a 26.5 point implied team total. They're playing at home. Signs would point to wanting to play Henderson. That is basically the only person I would be targeting in this game. I think you can play him in cash games. I think you can play him in tournaments. I feel like the ownership might get steamed up just because he is cheap. He's a starting running back. Everyone finally wants to play Travion Henderson. I would prefer the Chicago running back myself, a little bit cheaper. I feel like I can trust him a bit more, but Henderson is definitely the guy to target. And of course, there's no crime in playing both and loading up at other positions. Moving on to the 49ers on the road in New York. It sounds like we're going to get Brock Purdy back, although that is not official. Ricky Pearsall was just rolled out a few moments ago, so I've not been able to update that, but pretend he is gone and give a bit of a bump to just basically everybody else there. But CMC is the man I want to target in this one. He's my projected RB1 on this slate. I know he busted last week, but you have to remove emotion from fantasy. It does not matter. He gets a really nice spot here versus the Giants, and he is basically the safest running back week in, week out. I know Jonathan Taylor kind of debunked that last week, but the time of possession for the 49ers last week was pretty much as doomsday as it get. They just did not get the ball. They did not have the opportunity to even give it to Christian McCaffrey. But it's a softer spot here versus the Giants. He's only $8,800. I like the discount we get compared to Jonathan. Not saying Jonathan Taylor can't score 30 points again. That is 100% possible. But he's sub 9K. He does it all. Wide receiver 1, running back 1, you name it. If we're going to get 25 plus touches here, I love CMC. And for the Giants, Jackson Dart. I don't hate this at all. And actually, you could do a little bit of a game stack here with Jackson Dart. Pair him up with Wan'Dale Robinson, who I do think is a bit cheap here at $5,100. And you can run it back with CMC. But Jackson Dart currently, even over Caleb Williams, does project as my top value quarterback on the slate. Now, I like Caleb Williams in the sense of I think it's easier to stack with him. I like the game environment more. But on a point per dollar basis, Jackson Dart, I do think looks very solid. And if you're in a pinch for cash games, I do not mind punting with him, although I do think Caleb Williams maybe feels a tad better because of the total. But at the same time, this is at 48.5, so it's really not too far off. Moving on to the Colts and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another high total in this one, 50.5 points. Lots of solid plays in this one. We'll start with the Indianapolis Colts first. 27.5 implied team total. They are 3-point favorites on the road in Pittsburgh. The Steelers defense has not been what it used to be. I said this in my video on Tuesday or Wednesday, that growing up, Pittsburgh Steelers, great defense, the steel curtain, we all know that. But they've been giving it up points-wise this year, especially the quarterbacks, passing game. But good luck stopping Jonathan. Jonathan Taylor is going to get his. He's just $10,000. He's $11,000 over on FanDuel. It is tough to pay when I can get Christian McCaffrey $1,000 cheaper. It could obviously go like it did last week. That is 100% fault. I'm not saying to fade Jonathan Taylor. I just personally like the discount I get with Christian McCaffrey. And I don't mind taking the tournament approach here of playing the passing game. Daniel Jones at $6,200 seems a little bit too cheap. Maybe it should be kind of right around where Daniel Jones is at $6,500. I know it's only a few $100s off, but Tyler Warren, the Pittsburgh Steelers have not exactly been great versus the pass this year. They're allowing the second most points per game to the quarterback position. So I don't mind the Daniel Jones pairing with Tyler Warren. I don't mind using Michael Pittman or the double stack. You can run it back with somebody on the Steelers, whether that be Jalen Warren, who actually projects as one of the best point per dollar running backs on the slate, even with the other injury situations that we have. DK Metcalf, we know, is capable of big boom games. And that's basically all I would trust on Pittsburgh. Tight ends, basically a 3-man, 4-man rotation. So it's a little bit tricky to figure out, but I do think the prices on Warren, DK Metcalf are fine for GPPs. There are the Chargers on the road in Tennessee, only a 43.5 point over under in this one. I like Justin Herbert just about every single week because the offense is very fun. The emergence of Gadsden has propelled this offense, although it has kind of come at the cost of one or two of these wide receivers busting every single week. It was a little bit easier before Gadsden when we had Will Dissly and Tyler Conklin, but 27.5 implied team total. They're going to score points in this one. The problem is I just hate how lopsided it's projected to be. I don't like that it's in Tennessee. The Titans are they just suck, basically. Simple as that. So it's really not that fun to stack against them at times because you can't really run anybody back. And if this gets lopsided, we could just see Jarrett Patterson getting carries in the second half and we just milk the clock out. That's possible. But before that happens, I do think Justin Herbert, with either Lab McConkey, is finally starting to come into his self that we saw last season finally. Keenan Allen, QJ with the goose egg last week. That's the thing. With Gadsden being so good and being an important part of this offense now, one of these wide receivers is just not going to be able to eat. Not everybody, you can't have like all 6, 7 guys eating each and every single week. But I do like Vital. He's only $6,300. With his role in the offense, no Son Haskins. Jared Patterson gets a few carries to spell him, but he's not going to be involved in the passing game. So I do think at $6,300 with a near 17-point projection, that does firmly put him on play. And either side, too. $7,700 I don't think is bad either. Moving on to the Saints and the Rams. This is one of the lowest, I think it's got to be the lowest total we have seen this year at 14.5. They did make a QB change. Honestly, I just don't really like anybody on New Orleans. If I had to play anybody, it would be Chris Olave as the run back option, but I'm not even sure if I want to force that in this week. He's $6,100. I feel like there's better value elsewhere for teams that are projected to be at least a little bit more competent this week. I mean, they're going to score points. I don't think the Saints are going to get 0, so it could very well be Chris Olave getting 130 yards and a touchdown. That's possible. And if you are stacking the Rams, I would recommend playing Olave as the run back option, but I'm not going on a way to make Chris Olave a core play on this slate. I do think Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua with him being back, and Devontae Adams, they should be able to eat. But like I said, if it does get lopsided, you never know. We could just kind of grind it out with Blake Corum or Kyron Williams, who Kyron Williams is in play, but nearly $7,000. We have much better value on this slate personally. Like Chicago, the Patriots, all value running backs, even the Chiefs with Pacheco being out. Projections are not too far off, and they are much, much cheaper. Stafford will be a tournament option. I assume he is going to be very low owned because of the potential game environment here, but they should eat when they are trying at the very least. Jaguars and the Raiders, I really just don't have interest in this game. Travis Hunter is going to be placed on the IR, so he's going to be out for a little bit. Could bump up BTJ, I guess, but honestly, I don't really like this game. Brock Bowers is going to be returning, probably the healthiest we will have him since week 1 of this season, but this game's kind of a stay away for me. Like, there's okay guys. I mean, Gentee, Travis Etienne, they're solid running backs, but I just think there's much better value on this slate, and I have no interest in the quarterbacks. Now, this is going to be the last game we talk about, but it's potentially going to be the best game, at least the best game to watch. I don't know, for DFS purposes, it'll be the best. But 52.5 point over under, KC on the road in Buffalo. I'm sure we're going to get this matchup in the playoffs at some point. But 1.5 point spread in the Chiefs' favor, even being on the road with the Chiefs offense. I actually placed a futures bet on them to win the Super Bowl at plus 700 a few weeks ago. I think that's now down to 400, 450 at some places. I'm very impressed with this Chiefs team. I think this is probably the best team they've had, even with them winning multiple Super Bowls in the past. But they are just completely loaded on offense. Their defense is very solid. The run game isn't exactly amazing, but with Patrick Mahomes using his legs this year, and he at times he kind of looked a little washed last year, but he looks incredible. At least whatever happened. And then we have Rice, Worthy, Brown, Juju, Thornton, Kelsey, you name it. I love this team this year, and I'd be very shocked if they don't at least make it to the Super Bowl. But Patrick Mahomes is the QB1 on this slate. FanDuel, DraftKings, same thing either way. I would say it's maybe a little bit easier to fit him on DraftKings. And when I ran the optimizer earlier, Patrick Mahomes was not popping up in my optimal lineups on DraftKings, but he was popping up on the optimal on FanDuel. So with however the pricing is different over there, it must just like throwing Mahomes in a little bit easier. We'll have to see. But either way, if I am stacking in this game, I think it's easier to do with the Chiefs because Josh Allen can kind of just completely spread it out, or he can get tush pushes around the goal line, run it in, you name it, he can get there himself. And while Mahomes has shown the ability to run this year, he's still a little bit more reliant with his arm. So if I am playing him, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelsey, the first options, then we have the secondary options and Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, then after that, the tertiary options with Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, whoever it may be. But of course, you got to like everybody in this game. Josh Allen's still fine. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakur, solid options. Actually, I really like the price on Khalil Shakur. It's kind of tough to play the Bills pass catching options because they're a great team. They're not usually playing from behind. But in a game that's projected to be back and forth, and they actually are slight dogs here, I think that kind of makes these passing game options a little bit easier to get to in normal than they normally are. So I do think Shakir is actually a very solid play, $5,300. Even on FanDuel, it's $6,100. He's more of the safe option, while Keon Coleman has maybe a bit of a higher ceiling. I think Khalil Shakur does have the better floor. And then, of course, Dalton Kincaid is a very solid option. Like, the tier 1 guys for me are going to be Shakir and Dalton Kincaid, and then tier 2 is Coleman, and everybody else is on their own tier at the very bottom. And as promised, we're in the optimizer here to see who's popping. And of course, things can change by Sunday. I usually do a nice little overhaul late Saturday night, so everything is fine-tuned for Sunday morning. But we have basic settings on here, 25% randomness to account for the fact that I don't have the exact same projections as everybody else. We're going to do a minimum of two quarterback stack options in every single lineup, and we're going to do a minimum of 1 bring back. Now, if I'm actually building, I'm adding teams here. I'm doing team-specific stack rules where I don't want to force a double stack with Josh Allen. I might even force a stack option at all. Can set it at 0, and sometimes 1 will come in, sometimes 2. That's perfectly fine, but I don't want to force 2 stacking options. But we're not going to do that for the sake of time, but just pretend I did. We're going to click Optimize here on the 150, and let's see who is popping as the lineups come in. And I'm already seeing a lot of money guy here for the Chicago Bears. Should be no surprise to anybody. And I'm going to run it without the stacking options, show you guys the difference of more so optimals compared to which players it likes more when we're actually using correlation in our build. So if we look at quarterback here, lots of Jackson Dart. Like, he is just so cheap. I understand why the optimizer does like him. I mean, he's $5,100. He runs the ball a bit. I know Cam Scatterbo is dead, but just got to rely on Jackson Dart even more. But under that, A lot of Patrick Mahomes, a lot of Caleb Williams, Josh Allen, Daniel. It's basically my 5 favorite quarterbacks, honestly. So I am glad the projections do agree with that. I don't mind Joe Flacco if he starts, so it is nice to see him in 6. But as of right now, I just don't know that answer. But not surprised at all of who the top quarterbacks were. But man, that is a lot of Jackson. Personally, I would not run that much Jackson Dart 150, but projections do like him. Yeah, no surprise at the top 2 running backs. Those are my 2 favorite. Lots of Jalen Warren. Some Kyren Williams popped in. We kind of talked about him being a potential solid play. I mean, high total. He's at home. 2 touchdown favorite. I get it. Vital. Trayvon Henderson, Kareem Hunt. That's also like my main running back pool. So it's very nice when the projections line up. Sometimes I'm like, not sure I 100% agree. I kind of neglected to talk about Tyrone Tracy. Earlier in the week, I did like him, but since we have other value running backs, he did kind of get pushed down the list. But he's popping up at least 8% of the time in that crunch. Since we had so much Jackson Dart, it's got to find pass catchers, right? It threw in a ton of Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm not saying he's my favorite wide receiver, but I do think he is pretty cheap. Puka Nacua, Jamar Chase. Yeah, that's a lot of the heavy hitters right there. But when it's jamming in so many cheap running backs and a cheap quarterback, you can kind of fit whoever you want. Khalil Shakur, Darius Slayton for that double stack. I guess I get it for that. Rashee Rice, DK Metcalf, Kendrick Bourne popping up a little bit. Now, we still had Ricky Pearsall projected in for a few points that could manipulate a couple of things. Michael Pittman, I'm kind of curious to see what tight end is because I think that's really wide open this week. Travis Kelce, Theo Johnson, that's just because of the Jackson Dart thing. When we take out double stacks, I doubt we see Theo Johnson there. George Kittle, Dalton Kincaid, Noah Fant. Tight end's honestly pretty gross. If I had my pick of the litter, I like Travis Kelce and Tyler Warren the most personally this week. In defense, tons of Chargers, but it is the Titans offense, so I get it. Rams, Falcons, surprisingly in there. I don't really like the Falcons too much. Maybe it was a price thing. I figure what the price tag was off the top of my head. If we look at team exposure here, Chicago at the top, Los Angeles, but a lot of that was defense. Giants, San Francisco, which I'm assuming is mainly Christian McCaffrey. Rams, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, KC, Cincy. Yeah, not really surprised about that. Let me have the lineup cards down there. But let's take off the stack options, and we'll see how different this. It might not be a crazy difference, but I do think we're definitely going to see some things change at the very least. So here, let's pop up quarterback here. Yeah, that's getting a bit of a tighter spread now, but still leaning in Jackson Dart's favor. Patrick Mahomes is getting very close. Caleb Williams, Drake May gets popped up a little bit more when we take out stacking options. Same with Brock Purdy. We actually don't know if he's going to end up playing or not. That's something we're going to have to wait and see on. I'm trying to think who we lost. It doesn't look like it changed too much though, but Daniel Jones went a little bit lower. Josh Allen went a tad lower. Running back shouldn't change really at all. I mean, a couple percentage points on a few of these guys, so the order is a bit different. But honestly, that is my big head's in the way. Basically, the running back pool for me right now. Wide receiver, Puka Nacua, Wan'Dale Robinson. Really likes the Wan'Dale Robinson price. I'm going to have to check that and make sure I'm not overly inflating him. But at his price point, it does like him right now. Khalil Shakur, Jamar Chase, DK Metcalf. That's with the assumption that Joe Flacco is in, of course. Tight end, yeah, Theo Johnson, a little bit lower, but still doesn't hate him. Travis Kelce, Dalton Kincaid, Tucker Kraft. I get that. The 2 tight ends from the big game. I do think the Travis Kelce price is a little bit cheap this week. $4,600. Obviously had that huge game in the prime time. Maybe not appropriately adjusted for his price point after that game. And then defense really shouldn't change too much. And these overall team exposures wouldn't either. But yeah, see, when you take off the stacks, I mean, you can get any combination. QB plus 1, QB plus 2, QB plus 3. Looks like 101 non-stacks. Looks like there's a quad stack in there, maybe, who knows. But yeah, there we have it. But with that being said, that's all for you guys this week. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, even if you didn't, make sure you like down below. Scratch it for brand new. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. Wish you the best, and I'll see y'all next time.